She was locked in a dead man's room. 9 years old. Alone. The candle flickering. The red velvet curtains bleeding shadows across the walls. And the servant said that Mr. Reed, the only man who had ever been kind to her, had died in this very room. Laid out right here. In this bed. That's where Jane Eyre's story begins. Not with romance. Not with mystery. With a little girl screaming until she blacked out, because the people who were supposed to love her, locked her in a haunted room as punishment. Jane had nothing. No parents. No money. No beauty. The Reed family, her so-called guardians, made sure she never forgot it. Their son John beat her. Their mother lied about her. And when Jane finally snapped and fought back, finally said out loud the words burning in her chest, "I do not love you, and I never will," they shipped her off to a school where the porridge was burnt, the winters had no heat, and the headmaster preached God's love while starving the children. But something grew in Jane at that school. Not bitterness. Not defeat. Spine. She outlasted the cruelty. She outlasted the fever that swept through and took her best friend Helen, a girl so gentle she forgave her tormentors with her last breath. Jane didn't forget Helen. She just kept going. 8 years at that school. 6 as a student, 2 as a teacher. Until the morning she looked out the window at the fog-wrapped moors and thought, "I have to leave. Or I will disappear." So she advertised for a position. One answer came back. Thornfield Hall. The carriage dropped her in the dark. A massive stone manor rising from the countryside like it had grown there, ancient and proud, with battlements that cut the sky. A housekeeper named Mrs. Fairfax met her at the door, warm, ordinary, motherly. Jane exhaled. She was governess to a little French girl named Adele. Simple work. Quiet evenings. A home. But Thornfield had a secret. Every so often, in the dead of night, a laugh. Low. Slow. Dragging through the hallways like something half-human. Jane heard it. And every time she asked, Mrs. Fairfax said the same thing, "Oh, that's just Grace Poole. The seamstress." Odd woman. Jane accepted it. Because what choice did she have? Then the master came home. She met him on a frozen road before she knew who he was. His horse slipped on the ice. He fell. She helped him up, a dark-browed, broad-shouldered man in his late 30s, rough-mannered and storm-eyed, and only when she reached Thornfield and heard the servants whispering did she learn that was Mr. Rochester. Her employer. He was unlike any man she'd known. He didn't flatter her. He didn't ignore her. He talked to her. 4 hours. As if she were someone worth talking to. "You are not handsome," he told her once. "And I am not handsome either. But you speak the truth. Most people don't." She should have kept her distance. She knew that. She didn't. One night, she woke to smoke. She ran to his room, his curtains were on fire, his bed beginning to catch, and she doused the flames with every pitcher of water she could find, drenching him half awake in his bed. He grabbed her hands in the dark. "You've saved my life, Jane." The way he said her name. That was the beginning of her ruin. Or her salvation. She wasn't sure which. Then a stranger arrived. Mr. Mason. From Jamaica. And when Rochester saw that name, watched the blood drain from his own face, watched his hands begin to shake, Jane knew. Something was buried at Thornfield. Something alive. That night, a scream split the house open. Jane followed Rochester to the 3rd floor, a locked room, a tapestried chamber, and found Mr. Mason stabbed and bitten. Bleeding. Half-conscious. And all Rochester would tell Jane as she held a cloth to the man's wounds in the dark was, "Say nothing. To no one." She held vigil through the night. Alone with the unconscious man. And from behind the wall, that same low laugh. Moving. Watching. She was not in a ghost story. She was in something worse. Rochester's house party came and went. Beautiful women in silk gowns. A stunning heiress named Blanche Ingram who played the piano and draped herself across every room like she already owned it. And Rochester, cold with everyone, sharp with everyone, was only warm with Jane. One evening in the garden, under a chestnut tree splitting with summer lightning, he told her, "You are going to Ireland. I have found you a new position." "Ireland?" Her voice barely held. "That is very far." "Yes. Far from me." A pause. "Which is perhaps necessary." "Why?" "Because," he stopped. "Then, Jane. There are no other women in the world like you. I have searched. I know that now. And I am about to do something I may have no right to do." He asked her to marry him. She said yes. But the night before the wedding, something came into her room. A tall woman with dark wild hair. She held up Jane's wedding veil. Looked at herself in the mirror. Then tore the veil in two and placed her face inches from Jane's, and blew out the candle. Jane woke the next morning and told herself it was a dream. Except the veil was in two pieces on the floor. The ceremony began in the small church. The minister was halfway through the vows when a voice from the back cut through the silence like a blade. "This marriage cannot proceed. Mr. Rochester has a wife living." The world stopped. His name was Briggs. He was a solicitor. And the man beside him was Mason, still pale, still marked, who confirmed it. Bertha Antoinetta Mason. Rochester's wife. Locked in the third floor of Thornfield Hall for over a decade. Rochester didn't deny it. He stood there, stone-faced and terrible, and said, "Come see." He led them upstairs. Unlocked the hidden door. And behind it, growling, prowling on all fours, lunging at the bars with teeth bared and eyes rolling, was a woman. His wife. Mad violent. More dangerous than anything Jane had imagined in the dark. "That," said Rochester, "is what I was bound to. Before I ever met you." He explained everything, later. A scheme by his family. A wealthy marriage arranged in Jamaica. He didn't know she was unstable until after the wedding, didn't know the madness ran through her entire family like a river through stone. He brought her back to England, hid her away, and spent years running from what he'd done. "I was wrong to deceive you," he said. "But Jane, you are my equal. My better. My only hope of anything good. Stay with me. As my wife in everything but law. I will be faithful to you. Only you. Forever." He meant every word. She knew it. That's what made it impossible. She left before dawn. Slipped out of Thornfield with 20 shillings and no plan. Walked until she couldn't walk, collapsed on a moor, nearly died of hunger and exposure over 3 days of wandering, until a light in a farmhouse window pulled her back from the edge. The family there, the Rivers, St. John, Diana, and Mary, took her in. Fed her. Gave her purpose. She opened a school. She found her footing. And then she learned she had an uncle. Dead. And £20,000 inherited in his name. She split the money 4 ways. Cousins, she had cousins now, and she wouldn't keep all of it while they had nothing. St. John, brilliant, cold, missionary-bound, told her she was made for greater things. He asked her to go to India. To marry him. To sacrifice herself on an altar of purpose. "You will not love me," she said. "You have already told me so. Love is not what I am offering you." Then no. The night she almost said yes, when his voice had wrapped around her like a tide, when she felt herself going under, a sound broke through the walls of the room. Her name. Jane. Not a whisper. Not a ghost. A voice she knew as well as her own heartbeat. Rochester's voice. Somewhere in the dark. Calling. She packed a bag and left at first light. She found Thornfield in ruins. Burned. Blackened walls. No roof. grass growing through the rubble. She found out the rest from the innkeeper. Mrs. Bertha Rochester had set the fire herself. Spread it through the house. Rochester had gone back into the inferno to drag servants out, and then Bertha appeared on the battlements, hair on fire, arms wide, and jumped. She died on the stones below. Rochester was pulled out alive. But not whole. He had lost one hand. And both eyes. She found him at Ferndean, a small manor buried in deep woods. He was standing on the step in the rain, arms stretched out to feel if the weather had changed, face turned toward a sky he could no longer see. She walked up to him. Took the glass from the tray he was waiting for. "Who is this?" he demanded. "Someone who has come back." The silence that followed was not empty. It was the fullest silence she had ever heard. "Jane?" "Yes, sir." He grabbed her. Both hands. Pressed her to him like she was the only solid thing left in the world. "You are real. You are here." "I am here," she said. "And I am not leaving." She married him. Quietly. No grand ceremony. No guests. Just the two of them and a parson in a country church, and Jane saying the words she had been afraid to say for 2 years, and Rochester saying them back in a voice that broke only once. She was his eyes. She read to him. Described every field, every sky, every bird they passed on their walks through the wood. She told him what the light looked like. 2 years later, the darkness in one eye began to thin. He recovered some sight, enough to see her face, enough to hold his firstborn son up to the window and say, "He has my eyes." "He does," Jane said. "Are you sorry?" Rochester laughed for the first time in a very long time. This is what they never tell you about Jane Eyre. She wasn't rescued. She wasn't saved by love or money or a man on a white horse. She saved herself. 3 times over. First from the cruelty of a family that tried to make her small. Then from a man she loved who asked her to compromise the one thing she would not surrender, herself. Then from a saint who wanted to turn her into a soldier for God. Each time, she chose the harder road. Not because she was strong. Because she was honest about what she could not live without. She could not live without her own soul intact. And in the end, in that rain-soaked clearing, in those burned-down ruins, in that small country church, she found the one person who loved exactly that about her. The rest, as they say, is a very long and very happy life. END